And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 3, episode 31. And this will be a fun episode that I'm calling the Sweet 16 Scouting Report. I came up with a snappy name for this, and I'm really thrilled to have 4 Division 3 men's basketball head coaches with me. And I think a lot of the reason that they're with me is they played a bunch of these teams in the Sweet 16. And we're going to talk about these coaches. So in no particular order, we have, if you guys could just give a little wave here, we have Kevin Hopkins from Muhlenberg. Kevin, thank you so much. He's going to talk to us about Swarthmore and Johns Hopkins. We have my great friend Raul Placeres, the head coach of Maryville of Tennessee. And this guy, he got left at the Pool C table last year because of SOS. So he went out and played Mount Union, Keene State, Rowan, and Randolph-Macon, and he get left at the table this year because of winning percentage. So we're going to have to talk about that one, Raul. We have Caleb Kimbrough from Hampton-Sydney, who just exited the tournament, and Caleb's going to talk to us about Randolph-Macon and Christopher Newport. And Ron Rose from Illinois Wesleyan, and Ron has played Wheaton twice, North Park twice, St. Joe of Connecticut, and Wisconsin-Oshkosh. And Coach Rose, maybe I'll start with you. That was a heck of a schedule you tried to pull off this year. And I think maybe a reason that you're sitting here with me instead of potentially in this field is that you played a bunch of these teams. Like, what was with the schedule this year, Coach Rose?
Well, I think the 4 was, not sure how correct we are playing all these good teams, but I think we all would agree. Much rather play great competition and challenge your group and try to get the most out of them. And we didn't have a great success with these guys. There's a reason they're still playing and we're not. Certainly would rather be on the other side where people are giving the scouting report on our 4 teams and giving the scouting report on the teams that we played. But I know the 4 teams that we played are terrific teams. I don't have any predictions other than a lot of great basketball this weekend.
Thank you. That's Coach Rose from Illinois Wesleyan. Let's talk to Caleb for a second. Caleb, you were in the tournament. You beat Emory in round 1, and then you got paired up with Christopher Newport in round 2. We'll talk about those teams, but man, Caleb, you had an awesome season, 22-7. You were 14-2 in the ODAC, which is one of the best conferences. You played at Guilford, but Caleb, you got to be fired up about the season that you guys just had. I know you'd love to still be playing right now, but what a year for you guys.
Yeah, we're very excited. We had it's my 4th year here now, although it seems like a little bit shorter because of the COVID season. But we brought in a big group that stuck together. Didn't have a lot of guys leave, so we were excited about all the returning players and really challenged ourselves. We didn't have a single home non-league game, so we kind of went out and tried to challenge ourselves and grow closer on the road, and we're able to win a few. I thought it gave us some confidence going into league play, which is brutal. So playing at Guilford, playing for Tom Palumbo, I mean, that guy's a beast, man. So he taught me a lot of what we try to do, and give a lot of credit to what he taught me. But yeah, we're excited. We lose one going into next year, and we're excited about the team we have coming back.
Kevin Hopkins, those of you that have followed Division 3 for a long time will remember a 6'10" guy that played for Amherst. Kevin made 3 trips to the Final Four. He won a national title in 2007. He's in his 6th year at Muhlenberg. And Muhlenberg was a team in the mix this year. When you looked at the Pool C list, Muhlenberg was not far off the bubble. In fact, probably what happened in the final 2 days pushed Muhlenberg off getting to the table. But Kevin, the year you guys had this year, 18-9 in a great league with 2 Sweet 16 teams. You got to be pretty happy with the way you guys played and kind of where the building process is going here.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I mean, the outgoing seniors, their freshman year, we won 19 games, which was the most games that Muhlenberg has won since 85, 86 when I was born. So, and then to follow that up, after coming out of COVID, we had high expectations going in and had a lot of stuff behind the scenes that happened with injuries and all the other stuff with COVID, and kind of had a disappointing season. So to see them bounce back as seniors and come back with 18 wins and 12 league wins. So it was the most league wins Muhlenberg's had since the Centennial went to the double round robin in 03-04. Second most wins overall since 85, 86. So it was really exciting to see those guys accomplish some really good things. Got a chance to win at F&M, which we hadn't done in 20 something times. We got a win at Johns Hopkins, which is really hard to do. And so they did a lot of really good stuff. Went out and played Whitman out on the West Coast.
Right.
And there, I think it was their first home game they'd lost to a D3 opponent, non-conference, in like 7 years or something. So it was exciting to see guys just compete and get out there and be really connected as a group. So it was a lot of fun this year.
I'm also noticing some different generations here. You were born in 85, 86. I believe that Coach Rose had just transferred to Illinois Wesleyan from Division I Valparaiso. I mean, Ron, you were lacing them up for the Titans in 85, 86, correct?
This group's making me feel like the old guy for sure. I don't know. Hold on, guys. You go from the young guy to an old guy really quickly.
And my good friend Raul Placeres, Raul, Maryville, you guys had a really interesting season this year because you went out and you created this incredible schedule after being left off last year with a crazy great winning percentage and a SOS that was under 500. So you heeded the advice of the national committee chair, who happens to be your AD, Sarah Quattrocki, and you go out and schedule all these guys. You took your lumps, but then you made a heck of a charge the final, 6 weeks or so. I can't remember your winning streak at the end, but you got to where you were on the bubble, very much in the conversation. Talk about your season this year, Raul. 18-8, probably a win away, probably one win away from a Pool C. Talk about your season.
We ended up winning 10 straight games to end the year. I think if we're in Division I think the resume is a little bit different at that level. When you win 10 in a row, you win your regular season and conference tournament championship. In a normal year where we have an AQ, we are an NCAA tournament team. That's the hard part is that for 3 straight years, you include COVID, which we won the league. Last year, I think we were an NCAA tournament caliber team. But there was a lot of upsets this year. And although we did play everybody, and it was, I think, top 10 strength of schedule in the country, the winning percentage of the teams we played, it was like a booming like 760 or 770, which, that's why we're talking here today. We challenged ourselves, not only those 4 teams that are in the Sweet 16 today, but Wabash won their conference championship.
Right.
Sewanee won their conference championship. Marymount won their conference championship. We played Emory as well. We played a Berry team that was 24-3. So it was very challenging, but that's why I think we finished the way that we did towards the end of the year. I also did that by playing 6 freshmen. That's the encouraging part, right? And that's what makes me really excited about going into this year. Next year is that we started 3 freshmen and we played an additional 3. And we basically have, besides our stud is going to graduate, which hurts because he's really good, Miles Raznick. But man, in the long run, getting a Pool C bid, as we all know here on the podcast right now, it is extremely difficult. Sorry. I look at coach's alma mater, Guilford. I feel for Guilford. Guilford was 22-6, lost 3 games to Randolph-Macon out of that 6, lost to I believe Coach Kim. And then they also lost to NC Wesleyan, who made it to the tournament. No bad losses, right. And they beat Emory. So, right. Man, it's hard. We would have had to beat Keene State, Mount Union, and Randolph-Macon, 2 of those 3, I think, to get in this year because of all the upsets, and that's really hard to do. And so again, man, like Coach Rose said, challenging yourself to this degree only makes your program and it makes your players better. And we're going to continue to try to do that as long as I'm the head coach here.
Kudos to all of you for playing such great schedules. And that's why we're here, because you've played so many of these teams. We're not going to quite be able to get all of the Sweet 16 teams scouted, but we're going to get a big chunk of them here. And so let's start rattling that off. And we're going to have Kevin go first. There was a lot of YD3 to this scheduling process, that a whole bunch of you guys had very non-basketball things that you had to do. So Coach Rose has to teach class today, and Kevin has responsibilities at the baseball game today. So just a reminder for everyone that, like, these guys don't have the job that Bill Self has. Bill Self probably isn't working the baseball game today, for sure. Kevin, you've got 2 teams in your league that are in the Sweet 16. Same can be said for Coach Rose. let's talk, Kevin, about your two teams first, in no particular order. I'll start with Swarthmore because they're an overall #1 seed and they're hosting their sectional. Talk to us, Kevin, about what makes Swarthmore so good, and if you're scouting against Swarthmore in this game, and they're playing Keene State, which is an unbelievable matchup. Like, how are you scouting against Swarthmore? What do we need to know about them?
We didn't beat them, so I don't know if I'm the guy to tell him. But I mean, both teams are really well coached teams, and they're both really experienced. A lot of grad students, a lot of seniors. Even Swarthmore, with the COVID year, a lot of their guys took a gap year. So guys that are juniors are actually seniors as far as physicality and knowledge of the game and connection with their teammates and stuff. And so both teams super physical defensively. You got to be able to take care of the ball and make shots, because if you're turning it over, you're missing shots. They rebounded at a really high level. I think they're both like +9 rebounding wise. So if you're not scoring, they're going to get out in transition. They make you pay. And then even if you are scoring, they're going to come down and execute in the half court. And both of them, they make 2 or 3 more threes than their opponents. Hopkins gets the free throw line. They're making 3 more free throws than their opponents. So you really got to be dialed in and take care of the ball and rebound to compete with those guys. But overall, I think it's really just, it starts with their head coaches, Landry, Kosmalski, and Josh Loeffler. They both do a really good job. They've had teams in the tournament before, so they've been in that atmosphere. And they have players that have been in those situations. And again, just, the experience and physicality of things. We played a grad student and a couple seniors and a junior, but then we were playing a bunch of sophomores, and we competed with those guys. But then even in the playoffs against Hopkins, I think physically they just imposed their will a little bit more, and we didn't make enough shots to kind of keep it more of a half court game with them. So I think the #1 thing is being able to match their physicality and intensity, as far as on the defensive side of the ball and rebounding. And then you got to be able to take care of the ball and make shots and not turn over, because both those teams, they're going to wear you down for 40 minutes. And if you have a letdown for 2 or 3 minutes where you take some bad shots or turn it over, it's a 6-0 run, it's an 8-0 run. And then all of a sudden you're playing out of a hole, and neither of them turn it over. They don't take bad shots. They're not going to beat themselves. So they're both really good teams. And, unfortunately, playing a double round robin, that's 4 league games that we're playing plus a playoff game. So 5 of the games on our schedule are basically Sweet 16 caliber, if not further.
Right.
In the tournament, which is kind of, as we've had end of the year meetings, kind of what I've reminded our guys is sometimes you might lose sight of when you have really good teams in your league. You just see them as a league opponent. You're like, we really want to beat those guys. It's like sometimes you got to remind yourself, okay, not only are they really good in their league opponents, they're also 2 of the 16 teams that are left playing in the country. And so that means 4 or 5 times a year, whether or not we're in the NCAA tournament, you're playing a Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four caliber opponent. So you're getting that level of competition, which I think, as all the coaches have touched on, just getting that experience, whether it's in the tournament or in league play, really helps young guys gain that experience, and kind of how important all the little coaching cliches that people use are at the highest levels. Once you get to this level of the tournament, a lot of times it's less about, people aren't going to trick you with plays. It's our guys going to do the little things like sprint back on defense, or rotate and take a charge, or block out a big guy, or do little things like that make the difference. And so I can't speak highly enough about both those programs.
Can I ask you, Kevin, the difference with John Hopkins doesn't have Tom Corey anymore. They're 6'7" forward. He broke his wrist with out of 3 games left in the regular season, somewhere in there. How is Johns Hopkins different without Corey in there?
It's an interesting thing, because Corey is a kid who could go off. When we played them at home, we did a pretty good job defensively, and then we ducked under on a couple screens, and all of a sudden we'd done a good job on Corey, and then he bangs 3 threes in a row because he's 6'7", 6'8", can really stroke it. So he's a little bit more dynamic offensively than some of the guys they're playing now, but maybe not as good laterally, defensively. So he gives them some scoring, but maybe not as good defensively as some of the guys. So I think it changes the dynamic. Now they're playing some guys that are a little bit smaller, maybe less explosive offensively, but can get into the ball a little bit more defensively, which If you look at their numbers defensively, they're doing an outstanding job, making it really hard for teams to score on them. And that's kind of been their calling card this year more so. It's kind of been their defense fueling their offense rather than vice versa. So, they're a really deep team. They got a grad transfer from UVA, a grad transfer from Cross. Corey was a grad student at Hopkins. And so, again, they're deep, they're experienced, they got good physicality. Both teams really hard to match up with, for sure.
Yeah, and one theme to look for in the Sweet 16, this will continue to be a thing the next couple of years. There's a lot of fifth-year players out there this year. And, some of the schools in Division III are set up pretty well to get fifth-year guys. Some that don't have grad programs are not. And that's creating a little bit of, well, not a little, that's creating some separation right now. It's a big deal, that fifth year that's out there. Kevin, thank you so much for kind of word on Swarthmore and Hopkins. Let me transition here to Ron Rose. Ron, another one of the teams that's been great all year is St. Joseph of Connecticut. Of all places, you played them in South Dakota, Aberdeen, South Dakota, at the Small College Champions Classic. They have been ranked number one a good chunk of the year. They've just fallen a little lower after their loss to Albertus Magnus. But Coach Rose, talk about St. Joe of Connecticut and what makes them so difficult to match up with.
Well, when you contact me about that, I had to really think back. That was the third game of the season, which feels like a lifetime ago. But they're clearly a great basketball team. Kind of touch on what Kevin's a veteran team. They brought a lot of guys back from a year ago. From what I understand, maybe their roster rotation is a little bit different because of injuries now than when we played them. But the thing that jumps out is their athleticism. They have a number of guys that play above the rim, and the pace in which they play. They're going to put pressure on you for 40 minutes. They really, really guard, and they can really guard one-on-one. And so you're not going to just break them down individually. And then they play really hard. They're a group that I felt like when in South Dakota, they were really on a mission. I think they a year earlier had heard they hadn't played great competition. So they came out to South Dakota and played Oshkosh and ourselves. And you could tell they were hungry to prove themselves at that stage, which they clearly have done all year long. But they've got some guys, they're going to put pressure on you. They're going to try to turn you over. And their best shot might be a miss shot because they got some guys that just go to that glass. And so when you play them, you got to take care of the basketball, and you got to battle on the boards, and that's tough because they have some really athletic guys. And their point guard sets the tone. Point guard is an incredible motor, and they play at such a fast pace.
Yeah, J.C. Martin and defensively, they are an elite team. If you look at like their assist to turnover ratio for their opponents, it's scary how good they are defensively and how much they just disrupt. Let me ask with Randolph-Macon, I want to get both Caleb and Raul into this. Obviously, Caleb, let me start with you because you're in the conference with Randolph-Macon. And you've played them multiple times. They're the number one overall seed in this whole thing. They're the defending champs. It seemed like they lost that game. Did they lose their opener or one of the first two games they lost? And then maybe the second or third game, they played really shaky and barely won a game. I thought, oh, okay. Like they're maybe like number 22 this year and not number one. And then all this, like that's the last time they've lost. So Caleb, talk to us about what Josh Merkel has going at Randolph-Macon this year and what makes that team so special.
Yeah, kudos to him. He brought some to lose Buzz Anthony is a big deal. That guy was, he was a very difficult guy to prepare for, to say the least. But, he brought a lot of young guys in. So I think early in the year when they lost to Mary Wash, you see those young guys trying to get their feet wet a little bit. And then they had a close one against Hood. I think it was like triple overtime or something like that. Where they're able to pull it out. One of the things they do great, they're used to winning. You see them win these close games. They've won a lot of games over, I don't know, however many years. They've always been a good program, but they've really dominated over the past few years. And you can tell in the way they play. I think, those guys are special defensively. they make every possession difficult on you. They mix in this 3-2 zone with
Right.
good man-to-man defense, and they got Miles Mallory down there. He's 6'7". You know, he really plays like he's probably 6'8", 6'9", got long arms, very good shot blocker. You know, and they're disciplined. I mean, I think very similar to what Kevin was talking about with Swarthmore and Johns Hopkins, is these guys, they don't beat themselves. And you know, you can stay steady, and you're gonna have to hit some shots, and might have to take some tough shots. And but any let up, you know, any series of turnovers, any short stint in the game, they do a really good job of taking advantage of those things. And I give them a lot of credit. You know, all those players. You know, Will Coble's a guy for them who can really shoot it, and you might watch film and think, oh, we can expose him in areas. Man, he is a phenomenal player. I mean, the guy lights it up and gives them a spark every game. You know, Josh Talbert's a guy that's kind of played wingman to Buzz Anthony, I think, over the years. And man, he's been unbelievable this year, just in a different way. He's had to handle the ball more, he's had to play defense. And then you have Miles Mallory and, you know, Mbongu inside. Not a lot of people talk about him.
Yeah.
He's a force. You try to play that guy one-on-one, man, he'll back you down and shoot a little hook and get the rebound. So they're so steady, and they don't beat themselves. And I think having won so many games over the past few years, I think they're confident even when they're down that they're gonna get it done. So you know, you got to go in and you got to go beat them. You know, you got to make plays. You can't just let it come to you. So they're tough.
Yeah, and their defense is really unique, and I don't know what he likes to call it, but to me it looks like a zone and a matchup. And Raul, you played Randolph-Macon, and remind me, did you play them at their place? Did you go to their place?
We did. That's the tournament we went to. We beat Rowan the night before, and then we played them the following night. And I mean, one of the things that it's consistent with all the coaches speaking before me is they don't beat themselves, and that's one of the keys of getting further into the NCAA tournament is your ability to run offense without hurting yourself on the other end by committing silly turnovers that lead to points. I'll tell you, you know, a couple of things about Randolph-Macon that stand out to me. And Caleb played them as close as anybody. You know, we scored the most points against them. We're the team who scored the most points against them since December. Nobody scored more than 68 points against them since December, you know, which is mind-boggling, right? But what they do a great job, and I think Caleb would attest to this, is the first 10 minutes with them is crucial. If you can handle that initial defensive pressure that they bring to the table, you have a chance because of their pace of play, because they don't shoot the ball. If you look at their number, they don't shoot the ball very well. And I think that's a key to beat them. You have to, from the start, you have to handle the basketball. You have to take great shots and stay in the game, because the pace of play, it is going to be a close game. All the good teams that have played this year, for the most part, have all been close games, 1 to 2 possession games with 2 to 3 minutes to go. But man, I'm telling you, it's a lot easier said than done, right? But their 3-2 is the game changer. They get up 6 to 10 points and they go 3-2 zone. They're really long. They have an elite shot blocker. I believe he's the all-time shot blocker, Caleb, in the ODAC. They funnel everything to him, and it becomes really difficult to score on them. And you know, a tribute to them, 22 points they allowed in the first half this past weekend in an NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
It is.
You know, after losing one of the best point guards who's probably played in Division III and probably in the last decade. You know, what coach has done, man, from afar is extremely impressive. And they got a chance, man. They've what have they won? 60-something in a row at home?
Yeah, they just set the record for most wins at home in a row. I think it's 64, somewhere right in there. It's unbelievable.
And that's where they're playing this weekend. So they got a great shot again to get back to Fort Wayne.
And they play Oswego, so they play Oswego State, and that's a tough one for Oswego because they've been a great team, and to have to get them in the round of 16 is a tough one. But I guess all these matchups, when you look at it, you don't feel like they should be playing in the round of 16. Kevin, I know you've got to roll in just a sec, but before you leave, I did want to kind of ask you about the Centennial Conference. It's it's one of the top leagues in Division III, and you have 2 Sweet 16 teams, and then you've got, like, you guys are knocking on the door as a program, and a couple others are in there. With Swarthmore and Hopkins and what they lose and what they return, how does the Centennial, I know it's hard to look at next year already, but how does the Centennial stack up next year when you think to, get into November of 2024 or 2023?
I don't know if we've even gotten there yet. But like you said, it's a really good league. There's a lot of really good coaches. So even we're talking about the history at Franklin and Marshall, with Coach Robinson, who's National Coach of the Year awards named after, and then Nick Nashe taking over for him after working for a long time. Al Soretti at Dickinson's been doing Elite Eight with a team. Coach Small at Ursinus took a team to the Final Four. We actually played against them when I was a player at Amherst. We played them in the Final Four. I think Pat Doherty at Haverford does a really good job. So, I'm not really sure where teams are at with recruiting and stuff. And then, like you said, like Hopkins has grad school there, and so they have guys there knows if they're coming back with an extra COVID year. And we're kind of one of those schools that, we added 2 grad programs. So we were able to get Dan Gaines back for another year, which helped us a lot. But we don't really have an established grad program, so we can't really look at those 5th-year guys versus, like, even one of our seniors, Tommy McGuire. He did a great job. He was borderline defensive player of the year, but he's looking to use his 5th year. And if we had more established grad programs, he'd stay. But since we don't, now he's looking at other options. And so I think that is a huge part of the competitive balance, is that who knows who Hopkins can bring in with grad transfers. I think them and SWAT, they've played in the finals the last 5 years against each other. So they've kind of really established their programs. And then, like you said, we're kind of knocking on the door behind them. Coach Dunn at Gettysburg has done a really good job. And I mean, obviously they have great tradition when Coach Petrie was there. So it's hard to say where teams will be at. That's what makes the league so fun, is there's a lot of teams that can beat each other. And the double round robin, obviously, I know that's a big debate a lot of times with
The NESCAC.
NESCAC, where they play the single round robin. And I think there's benefits to that, where you're not beating each other up with SOS and other stuff. Like, even the year we were 19-8, we played a home playoff game against Washington College, and then we went down and we lost at Swarthmore by 3 at a shot room out at the buzzer. And we were regionally ranked going into the playoffs, and then we were out of the rankings because we took an SOS hit by playing a home playoff game, which was a little disappointing for us. That it's not a game we went out and scheduled, so how are we going to be penalized for playing that? But I mean, we got to go out and challenge ourselves, and not just within the league, but go find the best teams you can play out of conference, and kind of test yourselves and see where your teams are at, and hope the ball bounces your way. So, I mean, I'm excited for the group we're bringing back. We'll be a lot different than we were this year, but overall, it's a really fun league. And the thing I'm most excited for right now is I'm actually going to go out to Fort Wayne. Our senior Dan Gaines got elected to the NABC All-Star game, and Coach Hickson from Amherst is going to coach one of the teams. So hoping we can get Dan Gaines on his team, maybe sit on the bench, be his assistant one last time. He's up for the National Basketball Hall of Fame as a finalist, which is huge. Hopefully can get him in as the first representative of Division III athletics. I think it'd be a great thing to have happen. It was great to hear. I think it was Jared Colangelo who kind of plays a huge role in that, talking about the diversity of the class that's up for the Hall of Fame, and how he wants it not just to be the National Basketball Hall of Fame, but the Basketball Hall of Fame. And so it'd be a great honor for him. Obviously, he had a huge impact on me, not just as a player, but started my coaching career there and was there before I came to Muhlenberg. So it'd be fun to go out to Fort Wayne and hopefully sit on the bench for him one more time, and then hopefully get him in. It'd be great to have a first ballot Hall of Famer to carry the torch for some of these great D3 coaches that are out there, because I think there's a lot of people that may not understand the impact that coaches have, especially at the Division III level, not just as basketball coaches, but as mentors and all the other things that go into it at the Division III level.
Well, we appreciate it, Kevin. I know you were busy today, and you've got some duties at the baseball game. So feel free to drop if you need to drop, and we'll keep this rolling. And we'll see you in I'll see you in Fort Wayne. Okay.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Thanks again for having me. And I know D3 Hoops gets credit a lot of times. They do a great job publicizing Division III athletics. I think you've stepped in and do a great job having coaches on the podcast and kind of getting some exposure for these guys. Because as you've seen, especially in the last few years, just the talent level in Division III has taken off, and
Yeah, absolutely.
very good players. And so to have people like yourself that have coaches on, have players on, give them some publicity is a great thing, and it's really appreciated by the coaches for sure. So
Thanks,
thanks,
Kevin.
Dan.
Appreciate it, man. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Let's-
Have a good
Thank you so much. That was Kevin Hopkins from Eulenberg joining us, former great player at Amherst and now doing great things as a coach. Coach Rose, I wanted to ask you about our friends up north, Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Played them the last 2 years. You got them at the Shirk Center last year. That was a battle of CCIW 1 and WIAC 1, so that was a big one. This year, they got you, played really well and made it tough on your Titans there in Oshkosh. They play in, let's see, the Mount Union sectional. They get Rowan. Talk to us about the Titans of Wisconsin-Oshkosh.
Yeah, Matt does a great job. And I think consistent with most of the teams playing the Sweet 16, they're a very experienced group. They've been there before. These guys have logged a lot of minutes, played in a lot of big games. They are tough. They're physical. They're disciplined. As mentioned earlier, they don't beat themselves. They play a style. It'll be interesting because I know Rowan likes to get up and down the floor. Not that Oshkosh won't, but they play a much more controlled tempo. I think defensively, they just don't give any ground. They don't give, they want the block, they take the block. They're just very physical, which is a typical WIAC team. You think of the teams that play in the WIAC, you think of a grinding style of play, and that's how they play. They've got an elite post player, Levi Borchert, down low that is hard to guard one-on-one. They surround them with some guys that can shoot the basketball. They're very disciplined. They don't turn the ball over very much. And so, like Coach was saying about Randolph-Macon, they don't beat themselves.
Right.
You're going to have to go out and beat Oshkosh. You got to play a good basketball game to beat them. And so it's going to be a close game. They don't typically blow out a lot of people, but they never get blown out. And with that veteran group, it should be a heck of a basketball.
And Ron, isn't it true that with Oshkosh, there's not a lot of possessions in an Oshkosh game. So like I remember when we played them this year, we got down like 8 points and it felt like it was 24 to me because they're just, the ball doesn't move up and down the court fast enough to feel like you can catch up. Is that when you play a team like Oshkosh and you're down, does it kind of feel like the pressure is building more because it's such a grind?
Well, yeah, and that's that grinded out style. You're right. We got down 8, and you're trying to convince your players not to panic. But every possession matters, and they'll run offense for 20, 25, 30 seconds. So you have to be willing to defend that long, and they're just waiting for you to make a mistake. And you're exactly right. And like most good teams, you're with them for a long time, and for them, they'll get up 4. And then you're down 4 for 5-10 minutes, and then you're down 8, and then you're down 8 for 5 or 10 minutes, and then it's 12. Right. And it's just a slow, painful death. Sometimes playing a team like that because they are so stinking disciplined.
Raul, I want to talk. One of the teams that, for me, there's the favorite is Randolph-Macon, but I look at one of the top next favorites is Mount Union. To me, like, they're fantastic. They're hosting the sectional. It feels to me like they have all the pieces they need to win the national championship. You played Mount Union really early. What kind of scouting report do you have on the Purple Raiders?
And I'll tell you this, and this obviously is no disrespect to none of the teams that we have played. I believe Mount Union was the best team we played all year. And the reason I say that is because of the experience that they have, the 5th year guys that they have. I just think of the 4 teams that are left that we played, they're the deepest. I just think they got 7 to 8 guys that can really play and are grown men. They have a really experienced group. It's hard to play there. We beat Roanoke the night before. And, you know, and then they played Whitworth that day in that tournament. And it was a madhouse in there. And I can only imagine what that's going to be like for this Sweet 16 game. They have is it North Park who they have?
They play North Park.
Yeah, I think that's a really good matchup for both teams. I think they both match up great with one another. I always, in tournament games, I give the advantage to the home team. You know, you were just talking about Oshkosh is playing Rowan. I think that's the pod, right?
Yep.
I'll tell you what, you know, Oshkosh, like Coach said, I think because of their grind out style, that'll give Rowan issues. But Rowan is going to force you to not play that grind out style. And so I think it's just a matter of what style gives, right?
Right.
And, you know, at this time of the year, I'm a big proponent of discipline. And again, you know, I know the question was Mount Union. I think they have every makings of winning it all. I do. They have an elite post player. They got the D1 transfer from Youngstown State. I think who was there before, went to Youngstown, came back.
Right. Colin Gurley. He was at Mount Union. He went to Youngstown State and he came back. He's a stud.
And then they had a transfer from somewhere, another D3 transfer kid who comes off the bench for them that would start for 100% of the teams across the country.
Yeah.
And when you have that luxury to bring an all-league guy off the bench, you know, it bodes well for you as a program. So, you know, I like Coach Fewline. Is it Fewline, right? Mike, he does a fantastic job. He's been there before. So, you know, with them is depth, it's experience, it's girth inside, and they can shoot it. They have guys that can really fill it up. So, you know, they're giving themselves a really good shot to win it. And in that pod, just to add, since we're already on it, Rowan, right? That was one of the only of the four that are left we beat. It was 101-98. So it's up and down. And
right.
I think we had like 20 something steals that game. It was one of those crazy games. I honestly, from the four teams, they have the most talented starting five. All those guys can get a bucket. All of them. The issue now lies in these games. Can they defend?
Right.
I don't know if they defend, you know, as a whole for 40 minutes to give themselves a chance to beat these quality teams. But from an offensive standpoint, they're elite.
Earl, with the Rowan Oshkosh matchup, if Oshkosh is kind of this traditional WIAC, slow pace, just grind you down, good big guys, physical, it's almost an opposite game, isn't it? Rowan playing Oshkosh. Like how do you determine what wins out when two opposite teams like that play?
Rowan's gonna run and jump a bunch and take a lot of chances. I think Oshkosh will make them pay. And if coach is saying, I haven't seen Oshkosh play, honestly, but if he's saying they have a post player who's dominant inside, there's the opportunity that the guy may go for 30 and 15, honestly, because all he's going to do is get layups because Rowan is really going to gamble. Now, can that guy defend? I don't know what they do defensively because Rowan is going to spread you out. It's 5 out.
He'll have to guard perimeter guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to maximize where is the mismatch. And they have 5 guys, they can all score.
Right.
So if I think the Rowan is, can they play their style? If they play their style and Oshkosh can't handle it, I think Rowan wins. If Oshkosh can handle Rowan's pressure and beat them early, I think Oshkosh has the advantage. I really do.
And Oshkosh does have a really good point guard. Hunter Plowman's a D2 transfer. He was a really good D2 player, and he's a very, very good D3 point guard, handles the ball really well. But against the Rowan, you need multiple ball handlers. It's not good enough just for Hunter Plowman to handle it because they're going to make him give it up.
You're going to make mistakes. Like we lived that day. We were like, I don't know what we finished with. That was like Coach said, it feels like that was an eternity ago. But I feel like you got to live with, you're going to turn it over anywhere from 15 to 20 times. And if you're, and that's okay. It's just don't let those turnovers lead to points because of the style of play. They're going to force you to that. But, to me, that pod, if Mount Union plays to their potential, is Mount Union's pod. I do.
I think they're the favorite in that group. And we'll talk about North Park in a second because they're kind of the wild card in there. But Caleb, let me ask you about Christopher Newport. They are also hosting. They're also an overall #1 seed. So if we look at the brackets, it's Randolph-Macon, Swarthmore, Christopher Newport, and actually Rowan is the highest seed, but they got sent on the road because of geography. So to me, Mount Union's the favorite in that sectional, even though Rowan is the 1 seed because they're hosting. But Caleb, Christopher Newport has been dominant the entire year, and what John Krikorian has done there is unbelievable. Like he's won more than 20 games. I don't know how many years in a row. He's been to 2 Final Fours in the last 5 years or so. You played Christopher Newport this year. Walk us through what makes them such a tough team.
Sure. Yeah. Coach K does a great job. That's a beautiful school. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's it looks like it's not your normal small liberal arts school. Let's just put it that way. State school.
State school, right? Big state school.
Big state school. They do a good job of recruiting. They get really good players, and they're deep. I mean, you go down their bench. I mean, they got guys that would play for a lot of teams, I would assume. They got guys that we recruited that are sitting on the end of their bench, not playing at all right now. But no, they're physical. They've got size. They're physical. We played them at their place early in the year, right before Christmas. And we played really confidently, and we got out in transition, and we played well offensively. I think we scored 85 points, I think it was. They were without Trey Barber, they're big, 6'9", big. Yeah. And it's funny because we kind of thought our bigs are probably more 6'5", 6'6", versatile, quick, and we thought it would help us if Trey was in the game, to maybe attack him from the perimeter, make him guard. And we were still able to utilize our quickness in that game. And I thought we played really well. Now you fast forward to the NCAA tournament game, Barber's in the game. I mean, he made a huge impact. I mean, defensively, he was cleaning things up. We were trying to drive him, and he played really disciplined. And I thought Coach K did a good job of how they played defensively and matchup-wise, what they tried to do. They're a team that's going to try to wear you down. They can pressure you. I mean, I think everybody talks about like Barber and John Hines. John Hines I think he was All-American last year. I don't know if it was first team or second team, but yeah, I mean, he could play. He could play on both ends, and he's just a mismatch problem because you put a smaller guy on him. I mean, he's going to take you down to the block. And it's not like he's going to back you down and bully you to the rim. I mean, he just got his little turnaround jumper that's like a layup, from the free throw line. So last year they had a kid, Agner. I don't know if you remember, he could really shoot it. And that caused some issues because you had to decide whether you wanted to defend the high-low and how you were going to take away the post, or, he's going to light you up. And, this year, they got guys like Brody. They got guys that can shoot it well. They don't have the Agner type of kid, but they go rebound it, So now, they got the size, and now they'll still shoot it. And then you got to, I mean, that's just the first step. You got to figure out a way to get the rebound against these guys. And that hurt us in the NCAA tournament game. They pinned us, and we were, I watch it back, and I'm like, man, I thought we played solid defense, and we would get them to take a tough shot. And then you got like Trey Barber just pinning you under the basket, just grabbing the rebound. I asked the officials, he's bigger, he's bigger. I'm like, that didn't help me. I need more.
Caleb, can I ask you with the matchup there in your regional, the first weekend, last weekend, it was interesting because Christopher Newport would have hosted, but the women's basketball team had the hosting preference in the first weekend. And so they kept the seeds intact, but they sent them to your place. So you got to host, and you play Emory and they play Farmingdale State. And Farmingdale State, that'd be like a D1 1 versus 16 game. Now, Farmingdale State's a good team that can play. But it's a 1 versus 16 if you think about it. Farmingdale State's up 10 points at halftime. They lead most of the second half, and Farmingdale State had a 1-point lead with 40 seconds left. You're sitting there scouting. You're playing the late game, right? So you're scouting Farmingdale Newport. I got to know, Caleb, how big a fan of Farmingdale State were you in that early game last week? I mean, did you have Farmingdale State gear on? Or let's talk about that.
That's funny. I met this really nice coaching staff. I met them in their walkthrough when they came through. After watching that game, I didn't want to play either team. I'm still talking about, man, we got to bring someone else in, man. I don't want to play either of these teams. But I thought it really Farmingdale State came to play from the jump. They had energy, their defense. I mean, they were aggressive and confident. And I think CNU had been more like, we're playing a team that we should beat, maybe. That's what it just seemed like the feel of the game in the first half. But CNU turned the defense up in the second half, and I don't know. I give those guys a lot of credit. Those Farmingdale State guys. I mean,
They played great.
They were ready to go, and it came down to that last shot. And, honest. I mean, I thought they had the game all the way to the end, Farmingdale State. But
I did too.
as far as pulling from one team to the other, when I was watching them play, I was like, man, I don't know about this. Either one, we might have to dive a little deeper. I thought it worked to their advantage. Farmingdale State just not knowing any better. If you're around here, Christopher Newport has been a team that's won games, and there is a mental aspect to it. When I was in the USA South, I mean, Maryville was a team that was used to winning championships. And you go into that gym, you see all the banners. I mean, there's that aspect too. I think Farmingdale State came in and said, "Man, we don't care. We don't care.
That's right.
We're here to play." And that was fun to watch. That was a battle.
That would have been a huge win for the Skyline Conference. For those that aren't familiar with the Skyline, Yeshiva and Farmingdale State and all of those teams. I mean, that would have been a huge win for the Skyline. Coach Rose, let's talk about North Park. They were really kind of the talk of the CCIW this year. They've struggled the last few years. Sean Smith comes in. He takes talented returners, and then he adds several transfers, and he just put it all together. And they brought a different style to the CCIW. Most of the CCIW, I think, plays pretty what I'll call traditional Midwest basketball. You got a post player, you got good shooters, penetrators. They brought a completely different style to things this year. Talk about what North Park does so well.
Well, you're right. Sean has done a great job. Going in, you really didn't know what to expect from North Park. They brought back the Boyd twins for a fifth year, who started for the last 3 years, and they had incredible fifth years. I mean, they're physical. They both, Jordan and Jalen, both had terrific years for them, and I thought really played their role perfectly. It'd be easy to. I think Sean brought in 9 transfers. So you've got a mix of guys of some like you mentioned, good returning guys, especially the Boyd twins, with a lot of expectations from other guys. But what they are, they're as quick as anybody that we've played in recent years, and it really is a numbers game with them. And the number of possessions.
Right.
They get, I think, 14 more possessions than their opponents a game.
That's incredible.
Through turnovers, and not just turnovers, steals. I think it's 7 or 8 steals, which lead directly to buckets. And just their quickness on the floor. As I thought in preparation, we played St. Joe, who's really athletic. I think North Park's quicker. Now, I think St. Joe maybe has some guys that play above the rim, more leapers than maybe North Park, but just pure quickness and ball pressure. And they don't play, it's not a wild pressing style where they're going to trap a lot. It's just, they're just going to pick you up 94 feet and hound you. And just that constant ball pressure over 40 minutes. And then the offensive rebound exceptionally well. They're guards who are not big. They're 6 foot or smaller, are just quick to the basketball. And they chase down every loose ball. And so they just get more possessions than their opponents. So they don't have to shoot as high percentage. They can turn the ball over more times because they're going to get it back. And I think Sean's done a great job of meshing 9 transfers with the returning guys.
Absolutely.
And they just play different than a lot of people.
Can I ask, with their style, Ron, they remind me a lot of what Eric Bridgeland does. Like, you played Whitman when Whitman was #1. You played him out in California. And I think you're playing Eric Bridgeland's Redlands team in California next year. So we'll have a whole nother conversation about that. But it's not like a Grinnell system at all. It is just It's an intense defense. They turn opponents over 20 times a game. They shoot like 12 times more per game or something crazy. Um, does it wear you down in the second half? Because I watched the WashU game. WashU looked great at halftime. They were up 10. They were shooting 64%. In the second half, WashU looked gassed. They turned it over a million times. You played North Park twice. I think you had a lead in the second half of both of those games and kind of got worn down. Like, does that style wear you out as the second half plays on? Is there something to that?
Well, no question, because they're going to pressure you for 40 minutes. And it's not like teams that are trapping. They literally they will make it difficult to get it in, but they don't send a double at you very often. It is just one-on-one having to advance the ball and get into an offense for 40 minutes. And then they again, I don't know how many times they did it against us, but they'll just strip you at half court. And, that's a frustrating thing for a team. There's a mental aspect to that they're just going to hound that point guard over the course of the game, and it does wear you down. And it's just that constant pressure. It never lets up. A lot of teams you feel like, and I really, that those first 10 minutes, like Coach talked about, you got to survive those first 10 minutes, that wave of pressure never lets up.
Right.
And I do think over 40 minutes, if you let down, if you aren't mentally tough enough over about that 5-minute mark, 4 or 5 minute mark, they just need, a couple breaks, couple turnovers, and that's the game. And that's what happened to us. I think our games went down to the last 2 minutes. And we had shots to tie the ball game at the end of the game, but they're just gonna continue to play, and they do a really good job of playing through mistakes. Right. They may turn it over, they may take an ill-advised shot, they're gonna pick you up. They jam the outlet, so even your rebounders, you get the rebound, they're on you. You make the outlet, they're on you, and that's just a really kind of a unique style, and they have the athleticism, quickness to do it.
Yeah, they also have the chip on their shoulder. I think you mentioned St. Joe came into the season with the chip. North Park, I know that they feel like they haven't been respected in top 25 voting. I know that they feel like it took too long for people to acknowledge they were a good team this year. So they're coming in with a chip. Now, what I will say is I think Mount Union has the personnel to deal with their pressure. To me, what could happen in that game is Mount Union could have a million easy baskets. If they take care of the ball and they pass it well, Mount Union could pull away through just breaking or handling the pressure. I think Mount Union is positioned pretty well to play North Park. But then again, you say that about everyone North Park has played, and they just turn it into this frenetic chaos kind of game, and they're just so good. Just a couple more teams to get to here, guys, and thanks for hanging with me. Raul, one of the teams that I have loved the most all season long, probably have voted them in my top 4 the entire season since that game with you early. I think that's the game I watched that made me think these guys are awesome, is Keene State. They have a couple All-American guys. I'll let you talk about this, but I think Keene State could win the national championship. They have a tough matchup in the way that the draw works with Swarthmore, but to me, they can absolutely win that game at Swarthmore. Talk about Keene State.
Man, again, it's hard because we don't get to play everyone around the country. I can only speak on what we've done up to this point. In my opinion, that was the best 4-5-man mix that I have seen, and I've been coaching now 12 plus years in Division III, that I have seen play together. The Brito kid, 4-man who put it on the deck, can shoot threes, post you up, bring it down the floor. That's an enormous advantage.
Yep.
And their 5-man, to
Jeff
me,
Hunter.
Yeah, Jeff Hunter. I think he has 25, 26 double-doubles. He's left-handed, which is difficult to guard on the block. He can score from 15 feet. He's enormous. His wingspan is probably close to 7 feet. You talk about that edge. When we played them at the Great Lakes before the game, and I told this to our guys, and we were a young group, so I needed them to understand. Keene State was on a mission. You could hear it, you could sense it, you could see it through the warm-ups. They knew they had a team to be at this moment right now. And that's the way they went about their business. And you could see it all week. We played them really tight. It was a really good game when we played them. They came in the next night and they beat a Marietta team who's used to winning, who's used to playing in big games, and beat them by 30-plus points. They had that edge about them. I think, and I know a little bit about, because I got to speak to their coach. They played Swarthmore last year at Oswego. They beat Swarthmore. As coaches and as players, that sometimes gives you an edge going into the game. I think the X factor for them, they have a number 24, I believe, that comes off the bench, shooter.
Yeah.
To me, he's the difference, because you're going to have a hard time guarding both of those guys one-on-one. Can he make enough shots? Because he's going to be given those shots. You got to pick your poison. Can he provide 3 to 4 to 5 3-pointers this weekend in a game to be the difference? But those two guys, to me, 4-5 combo, elite.
Yeah, if you haven't
the
seen
crazy thing about it is, I think they're coming back again. Well,
Right.
Brito is for sure, but
Right.
Coach had said that Hunter is coming back to finish his extra year. So, I know he's feeling good about that.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Octavio Brito and Jeff Hunter, they're fantastic. Their home games are fun to watch. They pack this gym in, and their atmosphere is crazy. I think Keene State can absolutely win the Swarthmore game. And then one last team to talk about, and then we'll just kind of do a wrap up around the table here. Coach Rose, you played Wheaton 2 times this year. They got you at the Shirk Center. The game at Wheaton, I'm not going to comment on the final few seconds, and I'm going to advise you not to comment on the final few seconds. We'll just leave that to the Twitter pundits. But let's just say this: you played Wheaton really tough the second time. They're fantastic. They're so sound. Talk about what makes Wheaton so good.
Yeah, veteran group that plays really well together. The pieces fit. And, they've had a terrific guard in Dyson Cruikshank, who's had a tremendous season. And they brought in the 6 Askew kid as a 5th-year guy, and he is such a versatile, unique player. 6'7", plays on the perimeter but can go inside. They execute offensively. They run that 5-man motion with incredible patience, but they really execute. They get great shots. We mentioned it a lot of times. They don't beat themselves. They're sneaky in transition. And what they've got is, you have Askew and Cruikshank, who you spend all your time worrying about, but their role players have really embraced their roles.
Yep.
Like they do what they do well. They don't step out of their lane a lot. And so, and they're very patient. If you're not disciplined defensively in your approach, if you don't have an idea of how you want to try to approach defending that 5-man motion offense, they can carve you apart. And then defensively, they're just tough. They've got, again, those guys that you would call role players embrace that defensive end. Now Eli Constantine, I really hated to see that he's down with an injury. He's really an athletic, tough kid. They don't have a ton of size, but he was a guy that could guard bigger guys. I don't know exactly how they're going to, do without them when they face a guy that has a low post presence, who can score on the block. But they're just a very good team that fits well together. Mike certainly does a good job. They have a system. They run that. When you play Wheaton, you know exactly what you're going to get, and they run that system. And this group has run it as well as any I've seen in recent years.
Would you agree, Ron, that they play St. Joe? That's you've played both of these teams, St. Joe and Wheaton. It's a fascinating matchup. Seems like Wheaton is set up pretty good for that game because they have an All-American point guard. Like, they have a guy that is a great ball handler and decision maker. I think you need that against St. Joe. And if you have that, I think you have a pretty good chance. That matchup, not to predict the outcome, but that's a contrasting style game. How do you look at that St. Joe Wheaton game, having played both teams?
It is a contrasting style, but as I thought with North Park, you need multiple ball handlers. It's hard to have one guy, especially, with Cruikshank, they rely on him scoring as well.
Yep.
It's going to be hard for him. You can't just have one guy handle the ball against St. Joe or against North Park for that matter. You need multiple guys who have the ability to advance the ball past half court and get you into something. So it is going to be contrasting styles, kind of like we talked about the Rowan game. It's going to
Absolutely.
be, a game where Wheaton's going to try to control the tempo, and St. Joe wants to make it a high-scoring affair. But Wheaton can score. I mean, I say role players, and that is in no way disrespecting those other guys, because they have talented guys. They just know what they're really good at and do what they're really good at.
I thought this would be a fun show to do, guys, and it was exceeded my expectations. Like, I think people are going to get so much out of this and enjoy this, and it was good to pull Coach Rose in, because for you guys that don't know, when the Titans aren't in the tournament, he goes into a depression, and those of us that know him have to kind of pull him out. So I figured, let's get Coach into the QCast. Let's kind of start the healing process.
And, I appreciate that, Q. It's good to be seen here.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't get you on this show, I was worried we'd get to May and you'd still be there. So hopefully this helps you heal. Caleb, I want to start with you as we just kind of wrap up. It's been a season of parity in Division III, and we're seeing that in the Sweet 16, where you could argue that any of the 16 teams can win the national championship. Just give me, Caleb, your final thoughts on what's been an amazing season and kind of what you're looking forward to this weekend in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, one, Coach Rose, it must be nice to not be used to being in the tournament at this point. We're trying to get to your status, man. Also want to throw out there, our president is from Illinois Wesleyan. He went to Illinois Wesleyan.
Oh, how about that?
So I hear about it all the time.
Sweet.
But no, very, very proud of the group this year. Obviously, we kind of buckled down. We focus all the time on just getting ready for ODAC play to give us a chance to win the league. I think that's the biggest thing. We had a chance to win some of those games early. And yeah, I'm proud of the group. They focused on the work. I thought they stayed level. We lost our first game of the year in a game that, we thought was a game that we'd have a chance to win. And yeah, I'm just proud of the guys. Hampton-Sydney has a deep tradition of winning with Tony Shaver years and, going through to the early 2000s. And there's some pressure here sometimes. People expecting that all the time. And when I came in over the course of the 4 years, I've just been proud of the work the guys have done and really excited about how the community and the students have gotten behind it. I think getting lucky to host the tournament was just a complete joy. I mean, it was packed house in there. I mean, it was a lively environment. It's exactly the type of experience you want to give your guys. So I was proud of that as a coach. I was excited we got to give the guys that experience, and I'm hoping we can build on it. We can build on it next year.
And if anyone hasn't watched the Hampton-Sydney home game, they have one of the great home court setups. I mean, they pack them in. It is hostile and intense. I've watched a bunch of your games this year, Caleb. Appreciate you being part of this, and hope to see you in a gym somewhere along the way, either the rest of the season or next season. Raul, we talk pretty regularly throughout the season on various topics. Talk about kind of how the season has played out and what you're looking forward to from the round of 16 here coming up.
No, I think obviously at this point, all 16 teams have earned it. It's great to see the contrasting styles this week. When you're a junkie of the game, I guess, I know we all really appreciate that. And then we look into those things. And I just look forward to seeing the contrasting styles and see what works, what didn't work, and maybe steal a play here and there from someone, or a thought process during out of a timeout and things like that. But, at the end of the day, I think Randolph-Macon, because of their experience playing at home, gives themselves a good shot. I say the same for Mount Union. I think, with the Swarthmore Keene State game, it's a toss-up. But again, Swarthmore's playing at home. I think home matters. I think Caleb would attest to that. I think Coach Rose, with all the success he's had, when you play at home, it's tough to beat you. You're going to have to be really good. And, that's an advantage. And all those teams have earned that right. And so, I'm just looking forward to the weekend and seeing the games played. And, again, just like Caleb, and extremely proud of our guys. Man, Pool C is really hard. And I don't blame, you know how guys get on Twitter and, we deserve this. It's really, really difficult. We did our best. We had our opportunities. We're going to continue to schedule hard. I'm starting the year next year playing Worcester and Rochester.
Wow.
That's
good.
And we're going to continue to do that. And me and Caleb, we've become friends, and we talk about it all the time. we wanted to do that for our programs because we both have played in NCAA tournaments. We've both made runs. We know what that does for a program and for the experiences of the young men that play in our program. And I think that's what this is all about. And we'll continue to knock on the door. We have a very talented team coming back. We're going to challenge ourselves again. And, you know, come late February, March, early March next year, we hope to be in the conversation of getting into the national tournament. And, you know, since he's on here now, I'm trying to get down to Illinois Wesleyan in 2024-25. So maybe, hey, what about we just get me, Caleb, and Muhlenberg in it? Let's do it.
Let's book it, man. Let's book it.
Yeah, you stay on Coach Rose, Raul. I'd like to see that game because I think it was my senior season. My guy's season ended at Maryville, Tennessee, and I kind of would like a little revenge game there. I think that's the last time the Titans and Maryville have played. Thank you so much, Raul, for being part of this. And you mentioned you guys all played Division III basketball. Coach Rose, you were in a Sweet 16 as a player. That famous Elite Eight game against Ohio Wesleyan that the Titans fell. Was that an overtime game you lost at Ohio Wesleyan? Was it overtime?
Yeah, 100. What was it? 106 to 103. Didn't play a lot of defense back in the day. Our shorts were a lot shorter than these two guys, though. They're coming back to more my style.
Yeah, you know what it's like to play. You guys all do in the tournament. You've coached in several of these, Ron. You've been to 2 Final Fours. Last year, you were in the Elite Eight. Heartbreaker to Wabash. You know, those are tough, but it's also exciting. Your perspective, Ron, on just kind of the teams that are in the Sweet 16 and how special it is to be in this round.
First, it's great to connect with these great coaches, great programs. So honored to be on this. Hopefully next year, though, we'll be playing in it instead of talking about the teams that are playing in it. So that certainly is the goal. And brought up the home court D3 is different. And Division III special. What a great experience. Lucky to get to coach great young men. And anyone who doesn't think it's as big a deal at our level as any other level has never gone to seeing a Division III high level basketball game. And the 16 teams that are left, there's 16 really good basketball teams, well coached teams. It should be really fun watching these games this weekend. And it'll be for the next 2 weekends, putting some of the best D3 teams out in front of people. Hopefully, a lot of people can come watch those teams and support them. I appreciate you doing this, Q.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. And I want to thank Kevin Hopkins, who had to bail to do some on-campus duties first. Raul Placeres, my good friend from Maryville. Caleb Kimbrough from Hampton-Sydney had an unbelievable season and it was in the tournament, won a game. And Ron Rose from Illinois Wesleyan. Guys, thank you so much. People are going to really enjoy this. They're going to get a lot out of this, hearing from you guys. Best of luck to you guys. And next year, I hope you guys are the guys being talked about on the QCast. Thank you, guys.
24-25, man.